Okay, let me just get settled here. Oh, right. Today I'm going to draw a comic strip. Let me just get rid of this off my screen. Grievous Buttock Relief Thursday. Yeah, I don't know what it means either, but I needed a some kind of caption. So until I figure out what I'm going to call these things, I'm just going to make up names. Yeah, today I'm going to do a 4-panel comic strip. The one I've been currently writing is called Anxious Blob. Nothing special about it. It's just about anxieties in life and observations just through the eyes of a character I created. I've drawn about 7 of them. This is going to be the 8th, hopefully. And what I usually do to begin with is I usually begin on a word processor and I write it. So in this case, I've already written the text for it, which I've saved as a JPEG and I've imported into my document. And as you can see, it's just a black text on a white background. And what I usually do is I turn that layer setting to multiply, so it makes it transparent. And then I roughly place them where the actual dialogue boxes are going to be. Today's is about A-level result day. It's A-level results today, which is always a big thing if you're into that sort of thing. I'm no longer into that sort of thing, but everybody seems to have an opinion about A-levels. So I've written this text, created it on my Mac, and then sent it over to my tablet. And as you can see, the boxes are actually everything's actually in the wrong spot. So I usually just pull it around and pull them around to where. Oh, I'm just going to merge those 2 layers like that, and then I just pull them to wherever I think the text is going to go for the different characters. So that one's probably going to be down there. This is going to be down here somewhere. The others are probably going to be okay-ish. And like I was doing yesterday, it was just place things in the places where, you know, it's blocking things in. You at this stage, nothing is definite. Just going to move my layers around so I don't accidentally draw on the titles. I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to lock this layer. Although I'll probably be coming back to modify them later on. And now I just begin by... Sorry if my chair's squeaking. I've had to shut my window as well. It's miserable weather up here in the northwest. Blocking my character, so the main character's going to be here, probably walking in this direction. I've got to open my tablet again because that back in, they're throwing things into the air, jumping with the TV cameras. Yes, I'm probably going to have a character jumping in the air. It's one of those things on A-level results day that there's always some kid who's got about 12 A-levels, A-star A-levels, and they always have them on the news jumping in the air and living an idyllic life. I'm going to have him ducking a moment. I'm going to have the sort of kid maybe flying through the air. Again, these are just, I mean, I've not really thought through like the blocking out of it. Now now, do I have the character on the left side of the frame or the right? I normally have them on the left, so you see the character and then you read the text. Does it matter? It depends what I'm going to do. At the moment, I'm just going to put it here just for a bit of variety. I know I'm going to have, he's kind of addressing the camera. And then, I know there's going to be a little kid there, waving a flag, looking sad, because his cynicism is going to spread to her. Let's move that over to the right so I've got a little bit more room. I've locked the level. Lock the layer. Move that over there, relock the layer. And I'm going to put my character here, probably. That text is probably too wide at the moment, so what I will do eventually is I'll go back into my graphics package and create another caption with a slightly narrower box. So let's just try that, see how it looks. Right, so in fact I'm going to move that over so it's not getting in my way. I don't know if anybody watched the video I made yesterday, but I'm just going to carry on making these until people either say they like them or I just get completely fed up and abandon them completely as another failed project. But here we go. So it's A-level results when the streets are filled with groaning, moaning teenagers. Oh yeah, I wanted a kind of teenager there with his head in his hands. Another one there. Yeah. So what I'll do now is after that initial blocking it in, I mean I reduce the opacity of that layer. I could just draw over that layer, but then you end up just deleting all the lines you've created, and they kind of get in the way of the ones you've made. This next iteration of the cartoon, when I actually start to draw the characters, itself will be pretty rough because again I'm still at the layer of blocking things in to some degree. This character I'm creating is a character I've already drawn and learned to draw, because really when you're doing these comic strips, it's really better to figure out a character who you know how you can draw them repetitively in each scene, rather than trying to figure it out on the go. What you want, I think, in my experience, is a character who is very recognizable and stylized to a certain extent. So this character with one eye above the other, actually I've started to draw him with slightly darker eyes underneath there like that. Yeah, so you want a character who you can repetitively draw, and you're not going to get into the trouble of trying to get a likeness. So you want to do a likeness who's immediately recognizable. So this character of mine, this anxious blob character, I can draw him pretty quickly every time. Wide flat forehead. I've still not settled on the hair. I feel like I need to have a standard way of drawing the hair at the moment, and I haven't quite come up with it. So drawing hands is always tricky when they kind of come into the character into the foreground like that, but I think that looks okay. Now I always love drawing crossed arms. Hang on. So that one's coming under here, and that one's going under there. Yeah. Crossed arms are always fun. So that's roughly it. And I'll have that there. Okay, so now let's just finish the face. Oh, Thursdays is usually my day off. I write a column for every Thursday, and the stress of that always affects the early stages of my week. Try to think of something to write about, because it's not always apparent what I will write about. I try to get it done by Tuesday, but yesterday I only wrote it yesterday, so I had a slightly stressful week. That's not too bad. Right, so let's come to the kids. Here I'm just going to draw generic, what I hope are generic teenagers, but even here I'm not quite sure what a generic teenager would look like. Give him some great head of hair, and I mean, this is where you see how poorly I can actually draw. I did think about doing this as a series of like lessons on how to draw, but my experience of everything is you're better off. You learn by doing things. Whatever you're doing, don't fart around with exercises and stuff. Just get in there. So if you're doing photography, just get a camera and go out on the street. Learn through your mistakes. It's far better to do it that way than. In fact, I'll make this one a girl. I think we'll have a long. Yeah, much better to learn through your mistakes than farting around with tutorials. I assume it's a bit like learning a language. You often hear people complain when they learn a language that they spend time learning phrases which they would never have to say in real life, like, well, I can't immediately come up with one, obsessing over, train stations, or you don't necessarily want to go to a train station, but your travel arrangements or whatever, ordering bottles of wine and all the usual stuff you have in a lesson. Yeah, you're much better just learn by doing. In my opinion. All I can say is what I've done. The first cartoons I ever drew, even when I couldn't draw. And when I couldn't draw, I was actually using a mouse to draw, which is insane thinking about it. And the very first cartoons I drew weren't exercises, but were actually attempts to actually draw proper cartoons. And I've never really got into drawing exercises. I've done the odd thing, especially when I've had in the past difficulties, say, learning to draw hands. It's useful, for example, I'm not going to draw a hand there, but what was I going to make it? Oh, yeah, up here. When I'm initially drawing, what I do is I always draw kind of roughly that shape. But you kind of learn the shape of a hand and the size of the fingers is kind of that. And it's only through exercise that you kind of get to be able to draw hands quickly. Especially, you know, when they get more, say, complicated holding things, and even then I can struggle. I'll sometimes find myself sitting in a coffee shop where I'm studying my hand, holding a cup of coffee or something, trying to figure out how my fingers are going around the handles or something. Yeah, so it's sometimes useful to learn to do those things. Feet, I always had difficulty with feet. I'm actually drawing any feet in this. I'm drawing a couple up there, but yeah, there's always little things about feet. For example, when you're drawing shoes, it's getting that separation between the upper and the lower part of the shoe correct. This pen's actually a little bit big now. Yeah, so I'm going to turn off. No, I'm not going to turn off that lower level yet because I want to have. I'm going to have some kid looking here miserable because he's just failed his A-levels. I know that feeling. I didn't do great in my initial A-levels. I did okay later on when I am. You see, I've got to figure out if you hold in your hands, your thumbs at the back. Yeah, yeah, straight out of school I did awful at my A-levels and kind of made some rash decisions. I should have quit for a few years and realised what I wanted to do with my life. Never wanted to be a computer programmer, which is what I began for I did a computer degree. And although I've always liked computers, sometimes a bit obsessively, to be honest. Especially when I was programming. I used to love programming computers, but it was like all-consuming. Literally, it's all I would ever do. And yeah, I shouldn't really have got into computers like as much as I did. But I did a computer degree and hated it. I always wanted to do English, but I was very poor at English at school. I said I was poor. So I did my A-levels quite late. Anyway, there we go. So we're kind of getting there. We just finished drawing in this kid who's going to be responding to the cynicism. Let me think. Little hand. So it's going to be holding a. See, this is where I have to start holding an imaginary flag up in my own hand. So there we go. Let's make it a Union Jack for once. Not quite sure why I'd be doing a Union Jack, but there we go. There we go. Do shouts. Yeah. There we go. So that is the initial. So we've started with the text, blocked it out roughly, and then I've moved up to the next level, which is the characters in the right positions. The text is a little bit still in the wrong place. Let's see if I can move that here. Let's move that one there, and let's sort of move that one there, and then I don't really like this white space down the bottom left. I'm not quite sure what I'll do with that, that text box there is just too big. It needs squeezing in. So what I'm going to do for the moment is I'm just going to resize it. I'm going to have to redo that bit in my word processor, not my word processor, my graphic. You can do text in the. I am actually using Clip Studio Pro, which is my favourite drawing package, and you can. There is a text facility, but for a package which is like boasts on being like the package to use for creating comics, I just hate the text system. It's just horrible, absolutely horrible. I'd much rather go over to another package and go through the slightly laborious process of creating the text there and using it and importing it. So my next stage would be to add in some text boxes, which is actually not the most fun bit of the drawing, if I'm honest. I just used the cross-hatching pen, which I make bigger, and I just attempt to draw some circles around these, which is always a bit of a hit or miss. It's always a bit hit and miss because how much I'm going to hit the characters. That was not a bad one. This one's going to be a really big one, but I might again come back after I've done the. That's too small. It's actually probably in a better spot. Let's move the text. Yeah, when I sort of thought I'd do a comic strip, I never took into account how slightly boring a lot of the work is. But there was a lot of fiddly business in doing this, because it's all hit and miss. It's all seeing what works. That's not a bad one. See, I'm not sure what to do here. I don't mind that top box because it can always go behind his head, which I quite like having a sense of. I quite like having a sense of foreground, background, and interacting with the text elements. But I don't like this one here. No, it could be okay. Could be okay. Let's just see how it works. That first text box, that first screen is looking a little bit too busy. Okay, maybe let's have her floating on a cloud. Don't know if it works, but again. That rain. Can't believe it's August. It's awful. Whatever you're doing, okay. So let's stick another. Let's just. You see, at this point, I might have actually paused the recording, gone to fix all these things, and come back when it was all done. But the problem is, I've decided to do this one ostensibly. I mean, this is live to YouTube. Not that anybody's watching live on YouTube, because I've not advertised it, but this is live to YouTube. So I would like to see how I get on doing one of these live streams. Because nobody's watching it, I don't have too much pressure on me. Because part of this also, from my point of view, is an act of mild bravery, because I'm actually showing people my process, and the process is ugly. The process is full of mistakes. And the process can also take a very long time, which people don't realise when they just spending 2 seconds looking at the finished cartoon on, well, wherever it appears, and they just sort of assume everything's really easy and the 30 seconds they take to appreciate it was actually might actually have been like 2 or 3 hours. Do I anticipate this is going to be 2 or 3 hours? Ew, I've put that on the wrong spot. That's annoying. I've put that in the wrong place. That's the layer I wanted. Put that up there. I'm just going to have this text box kind of going slightly outside the upper frame, I think. I quite like doing this when I can get away with the drawing a box that's just overlapping the frames of the cartoon. I like the effect, I like the sense of not being contained by the form of the boxes. Yeah, that's not bad. Again, I'm probably going to come back and change the size of some of this text. But they're throwing things into the air and jumping for the TV cameras. I'm going to Loughborough. I did think about putting St Andrews, but Loughborough sounds funny. I don't know why. You really have to be careful about annoying A-star students around here. Whatever your result, know this, I did well at my A-levels and my life was a mess. So remember, to make the most of this moment, your naive optimism will soon fade. Despair, dread and disappointment are the only constants in life. And the little kid goes, yay! I don't know what... You know... When I write this stuff, I'm just writing it for myself. You know, which is probably my problem. I should probably think about what other people like. So that now is actually obviously it's not finished, but we're now pretty much ready for the next stage, which is again to darken that layer. And now when I come in, I'm coming in hoping to make actual proper finished lines that I don't want to be editing again. So I take a little bit more care with them this time. I'm still not used to writing or drawing on this chair, because when I used to work from a desktop, I have a monitor which I can draw on, a Hui on. I don't know what they call them, but one of these displays where you can actually use a pen on it. So I used to sit up at the desk, but for some reason, when I connected it to my PC, it started to throw some terrible errors, some USB error that completely crashed the PC. So I can't use it. So I'm using the tablet I usually use, like when I'm sitting downstairs or in a coffee shop. But my arm's now constantly getting in the way of the arm of the chair, so I've not quite got as much freedom. So that's my excuse if you see me suddenly redrawing something because I've not got it right first time. It's because my arm has got stuck on the chair. I'm also doing this today because tomorrow I hope to go and see the new Alien movie. Peter Bradshaw. Well, one I was kind of wanting to see it, but the trailers have really put me off it. It looks like a TV show. But I think it's by the director of Evil Dead. He said it was the director of Evil Dead, and I assume it's Evil Dead Rise. I've not looked. And I really liked Evil Dead Rise. I need to check if it's the same director. Which made me optimistic, and Ridley Scott's been talking it up. Although based off his recent films. I'm not entirely convinced by anything Ridley Scott tries to sell me these days. I don't like any of that. But Peter Bradshaw and the Guardians didn't rate it very highly, which usually means I'm going to enjoy it, because Peter Bradshaw seems to hate anything I like, and he likes anything I hate. He gave the film Strays 4 stars last year, the year before last. I despise that film. It's the first film I've really wanted to walk out of. A film about talking dogs. Yeah, he hated the new Indiana Jones film, which I really enjoyed. So, yeah, if he hates it, I might go and see it tomorrow if this rain eases up. So, this is probably my last chance to do one of these streams. I'm probably, looking at some of these lines, I don't think I'm necessarily drawing it any better than I did the first time. Sometimes I wouldn't necessarily do this. If my first one was close enough, I might just go in and modify the original, but it's probably quicker to do it this way. Deleting things can take a time, and yeah, sometimes just using the transparency layer makes it a lot easier. Yeah, I've not been watching many movies lately. I have this unlimited ticket for Warrington, and I don't know whether it's the summer or what, but I've just not been in the mood for films. And I love films. I'm a bit of a movie obsessive, but yeah, just not been in the mood for films. Don't know why. Although there haven't been that many good films around at the moment, in my opinion. A lot of really bad stuff. I prefer going to the movies I see at in Liverpool at the Picture House, but there's no unlimited ticket for Picture House. Plus it costs a fortune to get into Liverpool, so I can cycle to Warrington and go and see something, but it's not been a great year for movies. I wonder if it's to do with the writer's strike, whether they're still feeling the effects of the writer's strike from a year or so ago, and we're finally hitting that period when there was nothing being made. But yeah, it just feels like this doesn't feel particularly like a golden era of movies. I'm just going to fix that. Let me think. I'm going to fix this. Here. I've also noticed working on this chair is the way I'm forced to hold my tablet causes my arm to go dead, which isn't good. So I'm going to have to move a little bit because my hand's gone dead. Oh, that's better. Note to self, make this more comfortable if I do any more of these. I wish I had better advice about how to draw cartoons, or maybe how to write them. I don't find the writing of them that difficult, but maybe that's evidence of my obvious jokes. Maybe it should be more difficult, but I find as long as you've got an overall sense of what you want to say or what your theme is, the actual dialogue itself is pretty easy to write. I prefer slightly more. Let me just check. Hand goes that way. Yeah. I prefer slightly more wordy dialogue. I'm not going for anything realistic, but I do kind of like my words to sound pretty, dare I say, eloquent, but have a little bit of a snap to them. I think you want to always try to convey some character in whatever you do. I mean, not to tell other people how to do these things themselves, but I do find a lot of like webtoons, web cartoons, especially when they've clearly been drawn in things like Photoshop, and they've got very, very clean lines, and the colours are very bright and vibrant, and they've used graduated fills which make the colours so really, really, there's a kind of purity to everything, and they're really well drawn with, I mean, I'd much rather see something badly drawn with character than well drawn with a nauseous sense of banality. There's some great illustrators, but my God, they produce some really tedious work. Give me something rough and a bit grungy, rather than something I won't quite know what the phrase is. Something a little bit too perfect. This is something else. With adults, I do like, in fact I'll do it properly, I do like to kind of create a kind of knuckly effect with the hands. So what I do is I draw a circle and then I delete it like that. I've got a book somewhere by Arthur Ransom. Is it Arthur Ransom? He used to draw the Alice in Wonderland and kind of Mallory. I think it was Mallory. And he draws great hands, which are really gnarly. Usually belonging to like old witches and things, but I always love the way he draws knuckles and arthritic joints and things, and they just look amazing. So I've always aspired to be able to draw a really good gnarly witch's hand. I think I probably made the thumb a bit big there. Let me try that again. Maybe something like that. Yeah. Let's talk about how to write these things. Probably also better to just come up with one central character and kind of think through their outlook of life, which is probably better to make it. I won't make it an exact copy of yourself, but maybe kind of some heightened version of yourself. I mean, this character looks nothing like me. I did think about drawing a version of myself because I'm like I was saying yesterday, I'm a big fan of Robert Crumb, and Crumb appears in nearly all his characters, in his cartoons. I mean, he's got a few significant characters he does, like Fritz the Cat and Mystic Guy, whatever his name is. But I'm not sure like that. But anyway, it'll do. But you've got to have a pretty, I think the way Crumb looks lends itself to the cartoon. Biographical cartoons are some of the best. I really, really enjoy them. But I suppose this is biographical in a way, because the guy is expressing views which are pretty close to my own. But I suppose that's what makes them particularly easy to write if you're writing it from your own perspective. Put into words what you would put into words in real life. Maybe because I live such a quiet life where I don't actually get to meet that many people is why I kind of do this, I suppose. I don't know. Anyway, it's getting a bit deep now. I did actually have a different. Let me check. I'm gonna have some coffee. I did actually have back to the chocolate coffee again. I'm trying to use it up. I did actually have another cartoon I was going to draw as my first one, but it was a little bit too scatological. And my humour does run to the very scatological. So we turn that off. And I thought I might illustrate that one, but I don't think it's a good introduction. A good way to introduce myself to the world is to right. Let's try. I'm just going to start filling in some of this shadow detail, which is. You see, he's not going to be against the wall, but these two probably are going to be against the wall. I might even draw a wall in. I mean, some of this white space probably needs filling in. For some reason, I think it's just probably habit. I always tend to do the shadows falling on the left-hand side. Kind of highlights, which I kept calling reflections yesterday, but really I suppose these kind of some of these sort of lines are drawing in, like on his shoulder there, or kind of on his cheek, across his forehead, across his chin, maybe on his nose. They're more like implying highlights rather than reflections. Just delete those. Don't like that. If you're starting out drawing cartoons, I would recommend using a tablet, but then again, if you've got a tablet, if you haven't got a tablet, pen and paper is as good as anything. If you're a little bit nervous, nothing wrong with just doing it in pencil, going over it in pen. Start with like maybe felt tip pens. Fine liners are good. Buy yourself some Tipp-Ex. Don't be afraid to Tipp-Ex things out when you make a mistake. One of the worst mistakes I ever made was when I first started. A friend told me that it was wrong to use Tipp-Ex, and I got so paranoid about drawing and making mistakes until I went to London and went to the Cartoon Museum and saw literally every cartoon there is smothered in Tipp-Ex. Ralph Steadman uses Tipp-Ex extensively. Peanuts cartoons there covered in Tipp-Ex. Literally everybody uses Tipp-Ex. And I did actually write to Robert Crumb once, and he sent me a cartoon, and he actually wrote on it that I used Tipp-Ex, and sure enough, there was Tipp-Ex on the cartoon. So, yeah, use Tipp-Ex. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Which is actually one of the most powerful messages I can ever give anybody, whether it's writing or photography. Just don't be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are create some of the best effects. I mean, I can be writing an article, and autocorrect can fix something, and it'll be wrong. It wasn't what I intended, but maybe I like the sound of it, or I like the sounds of the word, and I'll rewrite the sentence either to keep the word in that context or to use that word in a different context, or and half of art is our mistakes. My brain tells me to draw a line in a certain spot, but what my brain wants and what my hand is capable of producing are two different things. And sometimes the effect is awful, and sometimes the effect is surprising but good. When I did my Book of Monk cartoons, I think that was shortly after meeting Steadman and him saying something like, just throw ink on the page and go with it and see where you go. So I threw some ink on the page, and it looked like the tunic of a monk. And about 400 cartoons later, I had a book full of monk cartoons, which I eventually got published. So yeah, publishing though, that's another area maybe for another day. It's hard to get published. They always say it's hard to get published the first time and then it gets easier. No, it doesn't. I've been published twice properly and it still doesn't get easy. Or it doesn't for me, maybe. I think you're probably better off if you live in London or New York or somewhere. I'm going to just decorate this kid's shirt with something. I don't quite know what, but something like that. I'm also going to darken his trousers in. One of the things about cross-hatching is it can look awful as you're doing it, but afterwards the effect can be surprisingly effective. Dare one say almost professional, but it can be surprising how good the effect of a bit of cross-hatching can be. I mean, somebody like Jebel Scarf, some of his illustrations from the 70s have got a ridiculous amount of cross-hatching in it. When you look at it in close detail, it's actually quite a mess. It's borderline scribbling. But the effect, because he kind of follows the same methodology for producing the cross-hatching, is amazing. I also know I keep saying the word kind of. I've noticed that's one of my verbal tics when I'm nervous and on doing these podcasty things. I've done it before. I've had problems saying the word kind of too much. It's like when you watch TV and you see some lad being interviewed for the news and they'll be going, know what I mean? Know what I mean? And you think, why does he speak like that? Does he not know how irritating that is? And then you hear yourself going kind of, and it's like, Why do I speak like that? Do I not know how irritating it is? Yeah, I do know how irritating it is. But imagine being me stuck with it. Oh, she looks too happy for somebody who just failed their A-levels. Try to remember how I felt when I failed my A-level. It's terrible. I actually did fail an A-level. I failed my A-level maths first time. And then I took it again and went from a U to an N. Unclassified to, what was it, an F? Can't remember if there's two categories of like failure. I know I got a U and I might have got an F. And then a few years later I got a C or B. I can't remember. See, this is how important they are. And I was so annoyed because it had finally clicked after all the years I'd been studying it and all the attempts. I finally understood maths. And I'm pretty certain to this day that I got everything right on the first paper, which was pure maths. But the second paper was statistics, and I was absolutely useless at statistics. Because the point at which the maths had clicked only happened like quite late in the year. And I'd completely it hadn't clicked late enough for the statistic bit to kind of get through my thick skull. So I think I got everything right on the first paper and possibly everything wrong on the second paper, which was all statistics. And I still think to this day I would like to go back and redo just pure maths. I love doing maths for that period. It just felt very natural to me. Doing all the kind of substitutions and... yeah, I understood it. I probably don't remember a bit of it now, but... yeah, wish I could have done maths. Right, so this is kind of looking slightly better. I'm afraid this is just like... this is the boring bit now. I won't even say it's the home stretch. It's kind of the home stretch. But, as I said yesterday, there's a point where you just... the thinking bit is over. And we're now into the long, monotonous sitting there with your own thoughts as your hand does its thing and fills in the white space. So it all just reads a little bit less tediously. I think cross-hatching is, I suppose what it does is it lends a kind of element of realism to it, even though it's all highly stylised and essentially just a very simple line drawing. You kind of creating a sense of depth and contrast. Did I mention how much I like contrast? I do sometimes want to use, I think I should use, that's looking a little bit questionable. Let's give her a slightly longer skirt. I feel like that's heading into inappropriate territory. So, slightly more. Not bad. White lines come from, black lines come from. Yeah, sometimes I want to use possibly part of that. Is it part of that? What's that come with? Oh, it's part of that. Sometimes I want to use something like pastels or something like Ronald Searle does, grey ink washes and things like that. But the problem with doing things digitally is we're not really at the stage where physical media he's replicated that well. Obviously ink works, but things like watercolour are very, very hard to replicate. There is a software package called Rebel I use occasionally, which does produce really realistic watercolour effects. And if you're into that, I would very much recommend it. I love Rebel, but you do need a pretty good PC to use it, which is one of the reasons why I do actually want to upgrade my PC. I'd like to start using some of the better software which I can't use. I can't even use Photoshop. I tried to use it on my laptop, but actually it just crashed. You need a proper video card, possibly an NVIDIA video card, I don't know. But that led me to get into a huge bloody spat with Adobe, who aren't a particularly pleasant company to deal with. When you buy your subscriptions, when you think it's like 10 quid a month to get all these packages, they don't mention that you can't actually get out of that. And if you do try to get out of it, they charge you the full year's price as a severance, as a fine or something. It's horrible. But it took me about a month to realise that the problem with the software wasn't actually anything to do with my PC having a bug, or I was thinking it was like some conflict with software, but actually it was just it didn't work with Radeon mobile graphics, which was pretty crappy to find out, because I was always a very, very big user of Photoshop, and I still probably would, to be honest. I use Affinity Photo now, but never much fallen in love with it. It's hard. It just doesn't work according to. I don't like the way I just don't like the way it works. It just seems very counterintuitive to somebody who's always been a Photoshopper. So if I do ever upgrade my PC, which again I require a good payday before I can even start to do that, I will. I might go back to using Photoshop. I don't know. I used to enjoy doing Photoshops, but even that whole art form's been taken over now because of AI, which is a whole nother matter. I think it's probably why I draw the way I draw now, or I'm trying to re-embrace it, because AI is such a malevolent force in art. Nick Cave was on the Corbett show, and he was talking about how important it is to protect music from the intrusion of AI. But I think it's even more true of illustration, cartooning. It's so easy just to allow the software to do all the difficult parts, and it's so perfect. I mean, it's perfect, but it's a perfection built on the work of others, because it's learned from all the artists who came before it, and producing work which is a derivative of that, even in some hidden way, but it's still a copy of human efforts, and therefore I think it's pretty morally objectionable, even if it's not obvious where the influence lies. But then again, oh God, this is getting deep in it. You could argue that all of us have influenced what came before, and am I drawing? When I do my cross-hatching in certain spots, is it because I am influenced by some artist who did it in the past, and I've memorised it, and internalised it, and now I'm just regurgitating their efforts? In which case, am I just as bad as AI? Or is AI just basically copying our own methods of of learning skills and creating things? Are we all a great derivative of the past? Derivative is a bit hard to say, that word. Anyway, let me just add this in. I was actually going to say something of profound insight then, and I can't remember what it was. Talk about AI. Yeah, I think it's infinitely more beneficial to accept your limitations and draw out of or work out of your humanity rather than worry about our inability to match AI. Because from what I can see, AI, a lot of it is intensely bland. Even the really good stuff, it can be kind of spectacularly, but in a fairly bland way. I think what hurts and what worries me is when you see AI done really well and you think, I could never do that. And I think if I was starting out as a cartoonist or an illustrator or a painter, it would be very, very difficult to think to this, just to take the time honing your craft when somebody with absolutely no skills can just go on the computer and say, please create me an illustration of this person and make it look like this, and I want them wearing this hat in front of this waterfall and this spectacular sunset. Hard to justify work when you do that. Yeah, so now we're coming down to the last one. I don't know how much of this I'll do today. I mean, it might be another one of those I'll come back to. I'm not sure about the white spaces in it. It feels like there's quite a bit of it, and I could either do with, I was going to say maybe I can move some of the other text into this box, but I'll have to see. Maybe I'm going to, I'm going to put a little bit of a background. I always like my characters to kind of be stood against something. I find that when you can put a little bit of shadow behind them like this, it just makes them pop a little bit, especially when you can do the dark. Make it particularly dark. There's a shadow wraps around them. I'm annoyed because I was going to say something and I can't think what it was about AI. Oh, I know what it was about. AI and bots. I had some of my work stolen yesterday, which is really, really frustrating. I mean, it's not the first time it's ever happened, but it was something I'd written, a review of Stuart Lee for a reaction, and I saw it reposted on the internet on a different website, and I was thinking, I recognise those words. So I started to read the review, and I suddenly realised that I had actually written it, but they'd reposted it on some website under some other person's name. And I got so angry. It was only a bit later on that I realised that the website was like one of these websites scamming people. It was trying to open all kinds of really dodgy links in the background, and I was getting virus alerts warning me not to proceed further, and I thought, oh, it's one of those sites. But originally I thought it was like a proper news site. But it was pretty obvious what they'd done. Somebody had set up a bot to troll the internet, skim all the news from various websites represent it as their own in the hope that Google or social media would link to it and then generate traffic, which would then allow them to get money from the ads they were displaying, which is one, it's a form of theft from me, using my work and the people who'd paid me to produce that work, obviously, but there's not much you can do. The bots are just so relentless, and you can't really protect words, and you can't protect images that well. Years ago, when I was photoshopping, I did a cartoon, actually a Photoshop of Harry Potter, and it was around the time Daniel Radcliffe, I think, had appeared naked on stage, so I did a picture of a naked, I'd photoshopped Daniel Radcliffe onto a naked body, but right where the genitals would be, I put Dobby coming into shot, kind of completely blocking it, and I can't remember what I'd said, text to it, but it was a funny picture, and I posted it on my website at the time, and then a few weeks later I noticed some traffic coming in, and I noticed somebody had linked to the picture from a forum under the text, "Oh, it originally comes from here" or something. And the more I looked into it, I finally discovered that on Google, when you typed in naked Daniel Radcliffe, my picture was the top search result, which at the time should have been earning me a fortune. But what had happened is somebody had stolen my image, posted it on their own website, with my name taken off it, my byline, my whatever, my website link, and passing it off as their own, and therefore making all the money from the ad revenue. What can you do? These people are not in the UK. They're not abiding by any laws. It's happening every single day. But it kind of made a difference. It would have made. If I'd have earned 20 quid from that picture, it would have made a difference to my life then. It would have made a difference now. What can you do? You create stuff, the internet chews it all up. We have no power. So we're getting scammed all the time. Our work's being stolen all the time. The bots are stealing our work, programmed by people who create nothing other than bots. You've got AI intruding and taking away people's work. You wonder where the incentive is to do any of this stuff. Because how long have I been working on this now? 1 hour 20 minutes. 1 hour 20 minutes to draw this one cartoon. Why would I want to do this? Thinking, I'll do this now and then some bot will come and steal it. And that's before you even get to the question of whether people even look at stuff these days. I don't know. I'm being too cynical. I'll shut up. As you can see, I've just fallen into the stage of just creating a little bit of depth around my shadows areas. I kind of like this stage. I'm just aware that I'm rambling on now. He's rambling on, he's listening to somebody witlessly ramble on entertainment in itself. I don't know. I suppose I just come across as one of those passively aggressive types. Last thing you want to hear is somebody like me wittering on about all the things that annoy me. But that did annoy me, somebody stealing my work. The irony, of course, is that I often give my work away for nothing. It really doesn't bother me giving my work away for nothing. I want I like the praise. I like people saying they like what I've done, they enjoyed it. You know, I'm just a normal human being. I like being liked. I don't like people stealing stuff from me though. That was deeply annoying. Hey ho. I suppose if this video, if anybody does ever watch these videos, I don't think I've even had any views from yesterday's, but I'm also too scared to look. I'd be scared to look if somebody had, I think, and then I'd also be scared to discover that nobody had. It's not so much performance anxiety, it's post-performance anxiety. Maybe I'd have put a performance anxiety if I thought anybody was watching this now. Anyway, bit of that there, bit of that there, bit of that there, maybe some shadows under the sleeve. Let's do the finger a little bit inside there. I mean, also some of this comes down. I mean, look at the detail of what you actually am dealing with, and then when you zoom out, it kind of becomes. It kind of looks okay. This hasn't. I mean, this isn't turning out too shoddily, I don't think. Well, not my place to say. Maybe it's a terrible comic strip. All I know is I kind of quite like this stuff. Let's try to get a sense of his arm, casting a shadow across his body. I didn't think it was going to take me this long, but then again, I think I probably also thought it was going to take me a lot longer. Maybe the kid needs a shadow behind. If he's against the wall and this kid's behind the wall. Some vague. Sense of where his shadow will be cast. I did wonder about putting these on a web page, but I don't know. Maybe collect them together into a comic, get it published. As in, publish it myself. Comics don't actually cost that much to publish, and I quite like the whole process of creating books. I actually own some ISBN numbers with the intention of publishing a couple of my books, maybe my photography books. I've got a book of poetry which I illustrated that I finished last year, but it's too expensive to get that one published because it's close to 200 pages. I might do some softbacks, I don't know, but I don't know if people buy poetry. Where am I up to? I've lost it. There we go. Also, I quite like to do some of my photography books. I've got a couple of ideas of the photographs I've been kind of interested in certain aspects of like modern living that I wanted to do as a book. But I've always wanted to do a comic book. I've started comic books in the past, but I got to about 20 pages and I think I just gave up. I think the thought of doing a cover I found a little bit intimidating. I also started to draw some very long cartoon strips, which just, you've got to have a lot of belief in your material to do a comic strip. When it gets to like 10, 15, for me it was 10 or 15 pages. I don't know how people do it much longer. I admire anybody who can write longer. I don't know whether to kind of fill more. I think what I need to do is I need to just, I don't know if she needs to be kind of maybe. One area I'm not entirely convinced by or sure about is like movement lines, whether I actually need them. You know, somebody getting hit over the head, something speeding along. I know the theory of where to put them, and I know kind of the logic of where to put them. It's just I start to sort of second guess myself because they look so artificial. I never know whether they kind of entirely work or not. This is actually one of my favourite stages of this, which I don't always do in cartoons, which is just there's a kind of after it's finished, in this case almost finished, I love getting into it with a really small pen and kind of going a little bit overboard with just details in places where you're like it's too far out really to be bothered about her mouth. She's such a small character, but I kind of quite enjoy coming in and let me have a look at it, kind of doing this stuff. Maybe she's a little bit too much, but when you start to come in and you realise you've used really, really big pens to. As I was saying, I think the pen was again a little bit big for this one, so probably need to start just taking some of this thickness out if I want to make it look decent. But yeah, I don't know if it works, but kind of the look of a smug 17-year-old on her way to Loughborough. Don't know where Loughborough is. I went to Liverpool. Almost went to Kiel. I might have done I would have done computers at Kiel if I'd got my grades. Actually, I think I had an offer from. I might have had an offer for somewhere like. I think I got offers from places like King's College in London. That would have been amazing, but I loved visiting it, but my maths were never strong enough at the time to study computers at King's College. But I went on a visit and it was an amazing visit, amazing place. Life didn't bless me that way. I mean, I didn't really ever, like I say, I don't think I would have wanted to have done a work in computing. I had friends who worked in computing. They were probably happy, but they had doctorates in computing, which was strange because I had a doctorate in English eventually. So, yeah, they took the path I didn't take. I don't know who ended up the most, who ended up luckiest. Certainly not me, I think. Well, I suppose that's unfair. I have been lucky in certain ways. But, poor but happy, maybe. I don't know. Anyway. There we go. I'm trying to think, is there anything in this? This is the stage where literally you can just carry on until you kind of go a little bit crazy, but I don't know how much more of this I would do. The obvious thing is I would start to fill in some of these gaps, but also I do need to fix some of the text boxes, and maybe come back and just rearrange a couple of elements. Anyway, I think that's how long have I been on? An hour and a half. Although I think that number there is actually different to the one that eventually comes up on YouTube. It feels like a couple of hours I've been doing this. So I think I'll leave it soon. I probably should go and do my bike. I have an exercise bike, and I try when I don't go out on my bike to at least do a bit. And I probably should do a bit because I've not cycled in a few days, and you don't half feel it when you've skipped it. It's funny how just adding a little bit of teeth at the bottom or the top kind of adds a lot of expression to a face. When you get to this stage and you can just get sucked into the whole into detail, you can just be here hours. Which, again, I kind of quite enjoy this stage. It can be like, because there's no thought involved, or it's not like high level, you don't need to make people laugh or come up with a punchline or anything. It's just decoration. It's just quite nice filling it in. And like I said yesterday about Ronald Searle, he would say he would spend a long time just fixing up all the little tiny mistakes, and I kind of see the appeal of that. It's quite nice just to I suppose it's like weeding a garden or something. It's not so much work as just doing like, I'm not sure what the phrase is, menial tasks or something. I think I'm going to have to leave it there. I can't really I can just carry on doing that for hours. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this off, and then I might post it somewhere. I'm going to do the important job now. One last job. Let me see how big that is. Yeah, you've got to have a signature. I've gone through quite a few signatures in my time, and I've sort of settled on this one. I quite like it. It's a bit different. It's not emulating anybody, which a few of them have, but this is just me. So there we go. I think I'll leave it there. Anyway, like I said, find me on Twitter, David Waywell. Email me if you want to, waywellcartoons@gmail.com. Tell me if you're watching, tell me if you're enjoying it, tell me if there's anything you want me to cover, and hopefully I'll see you again. Thank you for